and it is Find the Link, session 2, Identity Issues with Temitope, Praising Child. Most of you know me as Temitope Aidu, but Praising Child is my name. Okay. And that's just a video showing the galaxy, of which we're an important part. And we'll get to that shortly. Okay. So as some of us who have been to the previous sessions are aware, Find the Link sessions are to equip by enlightening, inspire, empower, and give. And the outline for today is going to discuss various viewpoints, what your belief might be, confounders, examples, and choices. Okay, so there's some basic questions, which would be, who are you? Who do you think you are? Who do you say you are? And what other people think about you? Like, do you know who I am? So do you know who I am is quite a common question that people ask when they're angry or about to get into a fight, just because they think people don't know their status is the reason why they're treated in a certain way. Okay, so the viewpoints that we'll talk about today would be from biology, psychology, divinity, and divinity will be a biblical viewpoint. Okay, so biology, every human being comes to being by fertilization through whichever means. And it's about a small egg from a female and a sperm cell from a man. And it would be interesting to note that the sperm cell is the smallest cell in the human body, and the female sex cell, which is the egg or the ovum, is one of the largest cells in the body. So they come together and a fetus is produced, grows in a mother, and the process of birth happens, in which there is a pushing through the birth canal, which is that's a normal delivery, or a pushing out with some assistance. And then birth happens, which is usually a very joyful occasion. And then the end point is living. And talking about living things basically move, they breathe, they feel, all the things that living things do, humans do or should. And then the end point is the point of dying. Okay. And that itself is, in this slide, we see a picture and we see the small sperm cell heading towards the ovum. And we need to realize that this happened through a very interesting process in which all of them are going towards the same source, probably hitting each other along the way. And the others are known to give way to this particular one to get into the ovum. But when it gets into the ovum, the whole environment of that egg cell changes and no other one can connect. And it's really a miracle that this one is the one that gets through. Okay, so at the point of birth, you're a fighter. That one has won the race, so it's a winner. And it didn't win by sitting down. It won through active progress towards the egg cell. So you're an active and important part of creation. And in summary, a wonder. And that is just biology. Now, basic psychology talks about the soul. So we'll realize that indirectly we're talking spirit, soul, and body. And it comprises the mental abilities of a human being. That's our power of reasoning, our character, feeling, consciousness, memory, perception, and the way we think. And like books, don't judge a book by its cover. So don't judge only by what you see. So don't judge people by how they look. And it's important that at the end, we can say, I know who I am. Okay, so it's good to know who you are, but it's also good to know why you are who you are. And that's the issue about identity and purpose, which are linked in some way that we'll get through towards the end. Okay, so the psychology of identity is about discovering potential. And that will be things that you realize you're able to do, things you've discovered about yourself, making choices, and that would involve choosing your purpose, not choosing for the sake of choosing, but choosing because you realize that this is something that you are created to do and you do differently from others. Of course, talent is not enough, but it is very easy to progress in the kind of things you're talented in. And then the last point here will be finding opportunities to grow that potential or to exhibit that potential. And many people are born with different kinds of potential. And as we would say, there are things we do differently, we think differently, we have different desires. All of these are parts of the soul, and that's why it's under psychology. Okay. Yep. Just a minute. Okay. So more is that identity is never final. It continues to develop throughout our lives. And knowing your particular identity accurately increases self-esteem, reduces depression, reduces anxiety, because you're not trying to please people by doing things. And when you do what you think you should be doing, you actually are happy because you feel that you're living with purpose. And when people misrepresent themselves or present themselves in a out of character way to impress an audience, they quickly realize that this way is foreign to them, is unnatural, and it's really tiring, is exhausting. And that kind of behavior requires greater cognitive resources because the mind is filled with self-doubt, self-consciousness, negative thoughts, which are not healthy ways to fulfill potential. Now we'll go to Divinity. I'll take my points from the Bible, which is a book I love very much and frames my life. And it's about the fact that we as humans were created intentionally, and it was a decision made that let us create man and humans. And then after that, God made us, and that's the Bible story. So he took his time to put us together the way he thought was good for us. He put our mouths in the right places, at the top and not at the bottom, was really intricate about it. And then after that, there was the breath that came into it. And if we go back to the slide on psychology, we realize that the soul means breath from the Greek definition, and that's quite interesting. So it's as though that breath came into us so that we have those attributes that God also had, like he put his soul into us, that breath. And God blessed them, gave them a command that they should go and produce, they should be fruitful, they should fill the earth, they should have dominion. And then there was the issue of fellowship, because after they were created and they were given things they need and they were carefully, and the created man and woman were carefully placed in a garden, then there was this communion, we'll call it fellowship, in which there was this discussion between the divine and the created. And it was about knowing, loving before things became pear-shaped. And the process should be continued transformation. And continued transformation takes place all the way until death. And Divinity, with our book, the Bible, just shows that death is a transition and not the end. But that just shows that you were created intentionally, you were created on purpose, carefully, tenderly. So there's no reason why we as human beings should live our lives as an explanation, trying to be apologetic, apologizing for being poor or being born, or apologizing for being a woman, or for being whoever God has made you to be, or for being just different. That's how you were made. There's nobody like you. So you're not supposed to act like somebody else. You were created as a original. Okay. And then the belief is about the thoughts we think, what we believe about ourselves. And there's this example about who you really are, who you say you are, and who you think you are, and who you are sure and convinced that you are. So we might see someone that is like a young girl. She thinks she's of age. She says she's of age. She has knowledge that she's of age, but the character might not portray her in that way. So we will not be able to say, is she really what she says she is? So we now realize how this can become important when we see how people behave, because how we behave is also based on our beliefs. And then there are different confounders, family backgrounds, our environment. Our environment would be the kind of society in which we live in. Family background would be the kind of family structure or setup we grew up in, what we saw mirrored. These are things that might confound these basic things. Of course, there's the religious bias, what is acceptable, and those can affect who we are or our identity, our portrayed identity. We already know that our original identity is good. Okay, so examples. It's a very simple example in which I can say I am kind. I can think I am kind. And then there's the issue of I know I am kind, and then others know you are kind. But then there might be some other issues that affect that belief. It could be that I was also brought up by kind and loving parents, and I watched it displayed frequently. It could also be that it is acceptable in my society and peer groups to be kind. It could be that my holy book teaches me to be kind as well. Now we will realize that if any of these things are affected, it can affect how people turn out. It can also affect how people view themselves. And some people have always viewed themselves through the eyes of others. Now, because this series is about relationships, we will say, how does identity play a part? What links identity with purpose? Because it's not enough to be, it's also very important to see the reason why we are. And the reason why we are is linked with our purpose. So according to Dr. Miles Monroe, a great man, he says, purpose allows you to be yourself. So purpose allows you to exhibit your identity. And your purpose cannot be achieved in isolation, hence the needs for relationships. So I listened to a powerful message today about burden bearers and destiny helpers and how we need people in our lives to help us to fulfill purpose. And I hope that this kind of links and connections in our lives are many, so that we can achieve and become all that we are meant to be and display all that potential. Okay. Now, we all need to decide, just a few quotes. We all need to decide whether to play it safe in life and worry about the downside, or instead take a chance by being who we really are and live the life our hearts desires. And which choice are you making? And that's by someone called Charlie Badenhope. And there's another quote that says, life presents many choices. The choices we make determine our future. And that just shows us how important the choices we make are. There are different factors that are affected, but it's important that we find out who we really are and we begin to live from that place of identity and purpose. And then this about choice, which was a beautiful quote I saw by Nelson Mandela. May your choices reflect your hopes and not your fears, because there is so much in the future. And even though sometimes the past affects how we view ourselves, we then have to make conscious decisions about what we do going forward. And in one of the past sessions, I talked about the fact that I'm hoping that people that come for these sessions are people that want some change in their lives, and not just want the change, but they are willing to pay a price for that change to happen, to have more meaningful and healthy relationships. Okay, and then this is a slide that asks us some questions which you probably would want to ask yourself. So who are you? Who are you really? And some people will say you are a case. And well, you're living in a case, but you're not a case. There's a lot more inside that needs to come out. And who do you want to be? So those are things to think about. And I was talking about relationships previously, about the fact that we need relationships to become who we really are. And I dare to say that one of the most important relationships would be the relationship with our divine source. So if you're connected to a divine source, it will be one of the most important relationships, just because you realize that if you want to achieve your potential and fulfill your real identity, you need help. And apart from physical and human help, you definitely need divine help. And I wake up every day and I have to say, God, help me. I need help. And I think we all need help to become who we really are. Okay. And just a few more points, the end points actually. Knowing who you are and where you're going makes it, knowing who you are and where you're going makes it easy to know who you need in your journey. And knowledge of your identity and purpose. I'm just putting it in a different way, in a slightly tidier way, that knowledge of your identity and purpose makes it easier to make choices about your relationships. So if you know who you are and you know what you're probably created to do, then it's easier to screen out those who are a part of it, or can be a part of it, or should be a part of it. And last words I'll take from Dr. Miles Monroe, which I echo, would be encouraged to declare independence from the expectations and opinions of others, defy their standards of success, and refuse to imprison your identity within the lifestyle or preferences of another. And I think that's a really profound statement, which I've taken from his book. And I think so many people always live their lives with comparison, comparing themselves to other people. But as I said, you're an original. There might be a similarity, just like there's a similarity between a pot and a pan, but they serve different purposes. One might be to fry, one might be to boil. You're not created the same way, and you don't have the same purpose. And even though you might be friends, there will be different roles you are made to accomplish in your life's journey. And I think this is really important. Thank you for your attention. I think I have Dr. Divinity. Would you like to say something? I was saying I would let my psychiatrist friend talk.
So now you're putting me on the spot.
I am putting you on the spot, yeah. Okay. I gave you a hint, didn't I?
Yeah, I know. I want to let one of my psychiatrist friends talk. I knew she was coming for me. Okay. Well done, Timmy. I thought it was good. I thought it was a good session. And just to reiterate some of the things you mentioned, that I think identity is a key part of an essential part of and an indicator of how good a person's mental health is. So I'll just say it from what I have seen, I mean, interacting with people, and where a lot of people end up having mental health challenges and mental health problems. A lot of it stems from identity problems, you know, a lot of people really not having a strong sense of purpose or sense of self. And then, and you highlighted several things. You talked about family factors. So some people have experienced trauma from certain relationships. They've had certain things happen to them, and this kind of misshaping their identity, and it does manifest in different ways. Anxiety problem, depression, suicidal thoughts, alcohol and drug problems. I mean, it can be serious. So of course, I want to assume that most of us are believers here, and you know, the word of God gives us, I think the reason why a lot of people struggle navigating through the world is because they do not have a sense of purpose or a sense of identity, which gives you a sense of purpose. And so, yeah, I think the Word of God is a good place to start to gain a sense of who you are. And you've highlighted a lot of those things. You talked about, even if you're not a believer, at least your DNA is unique. Your fingerprint is unique. I mean, those are pointers to the fact that God has a plan for each and every, no matter how many we are on planet Earth. God has a special, He has, a unique purpose for each and every one of us. And I think the day we all kind of latch onto that strong sense of identity, then a lot of the issues we see in the world, majority of it we wouldn't see. And then let me not start a lecture again. You already said so much. So well, thank you so much for a great session.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think you've touched other things that were in my mind that I tried to compress. I think those are fantastic thoughts, and those are things that are really rampant in our society. I'm sure all of us know somebody that has a problem with not knowing who they are, or allowing themselves to be dictated to about who they are or who they should be. And I think it can be quite challenging in a society where there's a lot of pressures, both known and unknown, both overt and covert and subtle, that we're not even aware of. So it's just something to be really mindful about. And I think there was a great preacher that said, either a preacher or a singer, that said, our souls do not find rest until they find their rest in God. Or our souls have no rest until they find their rest in thee. That's exactly how it was put. And I think we are all searching for something, but once we discover what that purpose is about, then we are able to live with passion and enthusiasm, knowing that I'm fulfilling my purpose here on earth. I'm doing what I should do, and it does make one happy. And I'll just share another thought that I heard in a meeting today, and it's about that the only thing that you really benefit from as a human being is a sense of fulfillment. And that was just really profound. Having a sense of fulfillment also comes from having a sense of identity and purpose. And in the end, you can only live and stay in one room at a time. You can only drive one car at a time. If you have children, they're going to leave. But living a fulfilled life is really something that we should think about and work on and look forward to. So I'm just happy to inform all of you, and I believe you've picked that from the session, that you're special, you're unique, you are wanted, you are needed. And don't ever forget that. Don't ever let anyone shortchange you to be less than who you are. So thank you, everybody. I think we have about 3 minutes left now. Some people are putting some interesting questions, and thank you for sharing so much, Dr. Adeniji. So someone has asked about, are you going to discuss stuff related to sex and stuff like that at some point? Because some of us that are virgins and celibates need help, and the church does not cover these things enough. We need to know how to handle ourselves while we wait to undefile the marriage bed. And I've replied that we will. I think that's a high point for a lot of people. I think intimacy issues and financial issues are a high point. We'll probably touch on finance issues next week when we talk about the place of maturity. And there's no point getting involved with someone who is not mature. So if you see that, unless you are able to deal with it and you think you want to groom the person into adulthood, which I don't really think is your responsibility, then you can decide to hang around. Otherwise, I think having a long-lasting relationship, like a stable marriage, should be between two mature individuals.